Welcome to Archive Vault, where we explore declassified records, hidden histories, and state-level investigations. Please note, some illustrative narration is AI-generated for storytelling purposes. All content is educational and documentary-based. Welcome to one of the most baffling mysteries in American history, the skyjacking that vanished into the night and entered legend. This is the story of D.B. Cooper. November 24th, 1971, Thanksgiving Eve. The afternoon light in Portland, Oregon was that soft, late autumn glow, the kind that makes ordinary routines feel peaceful, even mundane. People hurrying through Portland International Airport were thinking about holiday travel, turkey, family, early flights. Nothing seemed out of place, but among them was a man who would change the day and history forever. He walked up to the counter of Northwest Orient Airlines with nothing unusual about his stride or demeanor. Middle-aged or maybe a little older, about 6 feet tall, dressed in a business suit with a plain tie, he carried a small black attaché case in a brown paper bag. Using cash, he bought a one-way ticket on Flight 305, a short hop north to Seattle. On his ticket, the name read Dan Cooper, the alias he chose, though one early newswire mistake would later turn it into the famous D.B. Cooper. Cooper sat in the last row of the Boeing 727 at seat 18E. He ordered a bourbon and soda from the flight attendant, Florence Schaffner, and took slow sips as the plane prepared to take off. Other passengers chatted quietly, unaware that the flight was about to become the stage for a crime that would grip the nation. Shortly after takeoff, the atmosphere changed. Cooper slid a folded note across to Schaffner. At first, she thought it was a phone number, until he leaned in and whispered, "Miss, you'd better look at that note. I have a bomb." Inside his briefcase were what looked like sticks of dynamite in a battery. Wires, red cylindrical shapes, enough to make anyone believe he could detonate it. With calm precision, he gave his demands. $200,000 in $20 bills, roughly equivalent to over $1 million in today's money, and 4 parachutes for his escape. Schaffner walked those demands up to the cockpit. There was confusion, panic, but Cooper remained eerily composed, never shouting, never frantic, just steady, his eyes hidden behind sunglasses, his voice low but unmistakably serious. Authorities on the ground scrambled. The president of the airline authorized the payment, and the plane kept circling while staff prepared the ransom cash and parachutes in Seattle. When Flight 305 finally touched down at Seattle-Tacoma International Airport, Cooper's plan entered its next phase. The cabin doors opened, and 36 passengers stepped out, unaware they were being freed from a hijacking. Cooper allowed them to leave, prioritizing the safety of innocent travelers, but insisted that several crew members stay behind for what he called the next leg. 2 pilots, a flight engineer, and Schaffner remained aboard. On the tarmac, agents handed over the canvas bag with the ransom money and a bundle of parachutes. Crew and negotiators complied with Cooper's every instruction. The jet was refueled. The engines powered up once more. And then the last chapter, at least the known one, began. He ordered the plane to fly toward Mexico City with stops and instructions to stay below 10,000 feet at reduced speed. Somewhere over the thick forests of the Pacific Northwest, near what's today thought to be somewhere over southwest Washington state, the unthinkable happened. The rear stairs of the Boeing 727, a rare feature on that model, were lowered. In the darkening sky, with dusk bleeding into night, Cooper stepped backward off the plane into the stormy air below, gripping a parachute and his haul of bills. That was the last time anyone ever saw him. The plane continued on without him, the air stair still down, carrying bewildered crew members toward Reno and the headlines that would soon follow. But Cooper, that man in the suit, with the briefcase and the bomb and the calm voice, had disappeared into history. In the days that followed, investigators scoured forests, rivers, and fields. They interviewed hundreds, chased hundreds of leads, and combed the aircraft for every scrap of evidence left behind. They found his clip-on tie, later used for DNA analysis, and assorted bits of packing and parachute gear, but no trace of the man himself. And 11 years later, in 1980, some of the ransom money, just $5,800, turned up frayed and decayed on the banks of the Columbia River. Thousands of bill serial numbers from the famous ransom stash. As the Boeing 727 roared back into the skies after Cooper's daring jump, the magnitude of what had just happened began to sink in. On the ground, authorities scrambled. The Federal Bureau of Investigation was called in immediately, assigning the case the codename NORJAK, short for Northwest Hijacking. Agents swarmed the airport and the aircraft, combing every inch for evidence. Inside the cabin, they found a black clip-on tie, cigarette butts, a tie clip, and two of the parachutes Cooper had demanded, one of them oddly cut. Every passenger and crew member was interviewed, every detail noted. The investigators painstakingly reconstructed Cooper's calm, precise demeanor, the way he had leaned over the stewardess, whispered warnings, and commanded attention without ever raising his voice. Each scrap of evidence, every tiny fiber, became a crucial piece of a puzzle that refused to be solved. Years later, the discarded tie would reveal strange clues. Forensic analysis found microscopic particles of metals, such as titanium, bismuth, and strontium embedded in its fibers. Experts suggested this might indicate a background in specialized industrial work, perhaps aerospace or electronics, though nothing was definitive. The parachutes themselves added to the mystery. One of the main chutes appeared used, with lines cut in a manner consistent with deployment, but a training chute was included, sewn shut and clearly non-functional. Did Cooper know it was a dummy? Did he use it by mistake, or had he planned around it? These questions haunted investigators for years. Then, nearly a decade later in 1980, an unexpected clue emerged. A young boy digging along the Columbia River in Washington unearthed $5,800 in decaying $20 bills, a fraction of the ransom Cooper had taken. The serial numbers matched the Seattle cache perfectly. It was the first concrete physical evidence that Cooper had indeed jumped in that area, but it raised more questions than it answered. Where was the rest of the money? Did he survive the landing? If so, where did he go? The terrain of the Pacific Northwest was unforgiving, full of forests, rivers, and cliffs, making survival without preparation seem almost impossible. Over the years, investigators and amateur sleuths pursued hundreds of leads. Richard Floyd McCoy Jr., who pulled off a similar hijacking months later, was initially a suspect, but ruled out due to differences in appearance and method. Theories abounded about former paratroopers or men with specialized training, suggesting Cooper might have had military experience. Other suspects ranged from intelligence operatives to ordinary locals with opportunity and knowledge of the Columbia River, yet no definitive identity ever emerged. Every suspect seemed plausible for a moment, only to be dismissed upon closer scrutiny, leaving the man known as D.B. Cooper an enigma. Perhaps the most haunting question is whether he survived the jump. Conditions were brutal: a stormy night, low altitude, dress shoes, heavy cache, and rough terrain below. Survival seemed improbable, yet the discovery of money along the river hinted that maybe he had landed somewhere and carried the remainder with him. For decades, this paradox kept the legend alive. The FBI ultimately closed the case in 2016, redirecting resources elsewhere. Yet the fascination endured. Cooper had vanished, leaving behind only fragments of evidence, hundreds of dead ends, and the imagination of a nation captivated by a man who seemed to step out of the ordinary and into legend. As the years passed, D.B. Cooper's story transformed from a daring hijacking into a cultural phenomenon. The questions remained. Did he die that night, claimed by the dark forests of the Pacific Northwest? Or did he escape, slipping quietly into a new life, $200,000 in hand? The evidence alone cannot answer, and the mystery endures, shaping folklore, inspiring thrillers, and captivating generations. In the next part, we will dive into the most enduring theories, the legends spun around his identity, and the way the story of Cooper became an icon of American intrigue and audacity. Decades after that November night, the name D.B. Cooper has become a legend, whispered in true crime circles, recounted in documentaries, and even immortalized in folklore. With no body, no confirmed trace beyond a handful of dollars, and the clues left aboard the plane, Cooper's story took on a life of its own. Amateur sleuths, journalists, and law enforcement alike have pored over every detail, constructing theories as intricate as any thriller, yet none definitive. Some suggest he perished in the night, claimed by the wind and forested terrain of the Pacific Northwest. Others insist he survived, blending into anonymity, his daring escape complete, his identity protected by decades of secrecy and silence. Each theory attempts to answer the same question. Who was he, really, and where did he go? Among the more persistent suspects was Richard Floyd McCoy Jr., a man who hijacked a plane using remarkably similar methods months later. Yet the FBI quickly ruled him out, citing differences in appearance and execution. Others point to former military paratroopers or men with specialized skills in electronics and aviation, speculating that Cooper's calm demeanor, precise instructions, and ability to parachute safely suggests training beyond that of an ordinary man. Some amateur investigators have scoured property records, combed forests, and compared DNA evidence from his tie, imagining he may have quietly built a life far from the spotlight, carrying the remaining ransom with him. But each lead, promising at first glance, inevitably fell short, leaving Cooper's true identity just out of reach. The discovery of some of the ransom money along the Columbia River only added to the myth. How did a small fraction of the cash surface, while the majority seemingly vanished? Did this indicate a failed landing, an accident, or perhaps a carefully staged drop to mislead pursuers? Some suggest Cooper may have planned to bury the money as a failsafe, but the location and timing remain uncertain. Every clue seemed to tease the possibility of answers, yet reinforce the impossibility of certainty. Even modern investigators, employing forensic science unavailable in 1971, could only speculate from microscopic fibers, metals on his tie, and the trajectory of his jump. Over time, Cooper evolved into more than a man. He became a symbol, a figure of audacity, ingenuity, and calculated risk. Books, songs, and films have recast him as an anti-hero, a charming outlaw who vanished into the night, evading both law and legend alike. True crime enthusiasts debate not only his fate, but his motivation. Was it desperation, greed, or a love of adventure? And while the FBI officially closed the case in 2016, leaving behind files and artifacts in storage, the cultural fascination endures. From online communities to television specials, the story of D.B. Cooper continues to capture imaginations, proving that sometimes the absence of answers is what makes a story timeless. And so, as we look back over the decades since that quiet man in a business suit stepped onto Flight 305, one thing remains certain. D.B. Cooper did not just hijack a plane, he hijacked history itself. He disappeared not just from sight, but from certainty, leaving behind an enduring mystery that challenges logic, fuels speculation, and invites everyone to ask the same haunting question. Where is D.B. Cooper? Even decades after his disappearance, the mystery of D.B. Cooper has refused to fade, drawing the curiosity of a new generation of sleuths, historians, and amateur investigators. Long after the FBI officially closed the case in 2016, enthusiasts continue to re-examine evidence, exploring old files, reanalyzing photographs, and testing theories with modern forensic technology. In basements and libraries, in online forums and private collections, a quiet obsession persists. the belief that Cooper's secrets can still be uncovered. Some researchers use satellite imagery and topographic maps to hypothesize his landing zones, tracing the routes over the rugged forests and rivers of the Pacific Northwest. Others study historical weather data, calculating wind patterns, temperatures, and visibility at the time of his jump, attempting to reconstruct the impossible conditions he faced in 1971. New forensic methods have occasionally breathed life into the case. The fibers from Cooper's black tie, preserved for decades, were analyzed for DNA traces, yielding fragments that offered tantalizing, though inconclusive, clues about his age, hair color, and potential ancestry. Investigators also scrutinized the serial numbers of the $20 bills that disappeared and the few recovered along the Columbia River, hoping to detect patterns or links to known suspects. Each tiny detail, a microscopic particle, a shred of parachute, a weather report, is a breadcrumb leading to a maze with no exit. Even decades later, these efforts are part science, part hope, and part devotion to a story that refuses to die. Modern sleuths have also revisited long-standing suspects, reinterpreting their histories, backgrounds, and possible motives. Some focus on ex-military paratroopers whose skills would fit Cooper's profile, while others study reclusive individuals with knowledge of rivers, forests, and survival techniques. Amateur historians pore over personal letters, employment records, and local archives, searching for someone who fits the profile. A person who might have vanished without leaving a trace. Occasionally, new theories emerge from the shadows: hidden accomplices, staged deaths, even cryptic messages in old newspapers. Each idea gaining a life of its own in the community of Cooper enthusiasts. Yet despite all the analysis, the Cooper legend thrives on its uncertainty. Every discovery is a question in disguise. The missing millions, the unconfirmed identity, and the survival or death of the man himself continue to defy definitive answers. And perhaps that is why the fascination endures. D.B. Cooper is not merely a criminal or a fugitive. He is a riddle, a puzzle, and a cultural touchstone that challenges our understanding of crime, chance, and human audacity. The forests, rivers, and skies of the Pacific Northwest hold his secret, and the search warrior for now is as much about imagination as evidence. In the next and final part, we will step back from speculation and explore the reality behind the myth, examining what investigators, evidence, and historical records tell us for certain, separating fact from folklore, and revealing what the decades of mystery truly teach us about D.B. Cooper and the enduring power of an unsolved crime. Decades of speculation have surrounded D.B. Cooper, yet when we strip away the theories and myths, the facts remain hauntingly simple. On November 24, 1971, a man calling himself Dan Cooper hijacked Flight 305 from Portland to Seattle, extorted $200,000 in cash, and parachuted from the plane somewhere over the forests of the Pacific Northwest. He was never seen again. That is the indisputable truth. The FBI, in a case officially known as NORJAK, conducted an exhaustive investigation for 45 years, interviewing hundreds of suspects, analyzing fingerprints, conducting searches, and preserving every shred of physical evidence, from his black clip-on tie to remnants of the parachutes. The discovery of $5,800 of the ransom money along the Columbia River in 1980 remains the only physical trace of Cooper after the jump. Beyond that, his fate, identity, and whereabouts remain unknown. What investigators can confirm is that Cooper executed his plan with meticulous timing and extraordinary nerve. He maintained composure under pressure, manipulated airline staff and law enforcement with calm precision, and used the unique design of the Boeing 727's rear air stair to make his escape. Forensics suggest he may have had familiarity with parachuting or at least some specialized industrial background, but nothing in the files definitively identifies him. His jump was perilous. Low altitude, poor weather, heavy cash, and unsuitable clothing. Conditions that would challenge even an experienced skydiver. Yet no body, no trace of him beyond the river bills, and no eyewitness accounts post-jump have ever been confirmed. This is what reality offers: an unsolved crime that persists not because of mystery alone, but because there is no evidence to close the case. The cultural fascination with D.B. Cooper is perhaps as enduring as the facts themselves. Books, films, songs, and documentaries have immortalized him as an anti-hero, the man who outsmarted authorities and disappeared into legend. True crime enthusiasts continue to hunt for clues, re-examine evidence, and speculate on his identity and fate. Every new theory, from surviving in the wilderness to living under a new name, exists alongside a simple, unshakable truth. No one has proven anything beyond a shadow of a doubt. Cooper remains and always will remain the only hijacker in U.S. history to vanish without capture. In the end, D.B. Cooper is more than a criminal or a folk hero. He is a symbol of the unsolved, a reminder that sometimes human audacity leaves behind questions that refuse to be answered. The forests of the Pacific Northwest, the cold waters of the Columbia River, and the sky he leapt into all hold a secret no one has yet revealed. And so we are left not with answers, but with the enduring mystery itself, a story that continues to captivate, confound, and inspire, half a century after one man quietly stepped off a plane and disappeared forever. Thank you for listening to Archive Vault Podcast. I hope you enjoyed this deep dive and found it insightful. Wishing you a great week ahead, and remember to subscribe so you don't miss our next episode. We'll be back soon with more stories from the archives. See you next time.